Hi, this is Mary Kay, and today we are painting a pumpkin on a fence post with a raven, which you can't see yet. So the first thing I did was I ran this image off on my computer through the printer, and I used non-water soluble graphite paper to sketch out the tree trunk. Notice that little bit right there is important, so it's sitting on something. The pumpkin, the stem. I left out this one going up because anytime you have an X in a painting, your eye is drawn to that, and I don't want my eye to go there. So that was the first thing I did. And then I cut out this picture of this raven and I put it on, and then I traced it so that the feet are right on the edge of the pumpkin here. So those are my steps to get started. I'm going to paint the background last. I'm going to start with the orange pumpkin. So the main thing on the orange pumpkin is to get these beautiful highlights. And the way that I'm going to do those is I'm going to start with yellow. I'm going to just put a very light yellow wash over the highlighted part of the pumpkin, which goes down here. Then I'm going to make a lot. This was a wet on dry, and now I'm going to make, move those over so you can see the colors better. I'm going to make a nice big petal of orange. Okay, and now I'm going to start painting over the yellows. The feet are going to be black, so we can just, if we don't lose our lines, we can paint right over these. One of the things that's happening with my brush right now is that it's on kind of dry paper, and so if I use the side of my brush, it just catches and leaves those nice marks like this. See these white areas? So now I'm going to do the shadowy part of the pumpkin, which this orange, might take me a minute to get this orange. So it's gonna start with yellow and permanent rose, super dark. So it's almost red. Yeah, I'm gonna start here and go up and then see what kind of, this is all on dry paper at this point. Got those two, they're neat now. So I have sort of a dark orange side and a light orange side. What I'm going to do right now is try to find the areas in shadow. So the most obvious one is this one here. And then there's a little one here. that kind of gives the feel of the shadow and the lumps on the pumpkin. I'm going to go in darker now at the bottom. So let's see. It seems almost like there's a, I think it's a French in there. Almost a purple. Yeah. Oh, is that it? So close. Maybe if I layer this over that, how's this going to look? Let me look. Okay, I kind of like that color. Okay, and we're going to go so really dark here at the bottom because there's, okay. Just trying to match the photo, the colors in the photo, paying particular attention to the shadows next to the highlights. You know, I kind of have a little bit of a shaky hand today. I don't mind that at all because the pumpkins aren't. I think they were made shakily too. There's a little bit right here, here. Should draw out those. Maybe we should draw out those shadows better when we do it in class. And then this way we have shadow, and here we have little shadows coming up this way. Here, this is a little darker in here too. I like the white highlights just fine. I like to leave a little white showing in my paintings. I'm gonna make a little lighter yellow or a little lighter orange again and just kind of go back over here. Oh, not that. I want really pale. Yeah, there we go. Where the sun is shining. Those are almost really, they're almost white. Okay, so that's my pumpkin. And now I'm going to work on the fence post. So orange, we use 3 colors for the orange: yellow, permanent rose, and French ultramarine blue. For the fence post, well actually I kind of see some orange in the fence post. I shouldn't have wiped that up yet. I should have just left that made and put it down there in the fence post as a color that's showing through, and then paint over it. That's not a bad idea. And even right here. Okay, so now I'm going to make the blackish brown. And blackish brown I make with 2 colors: burnt sienna and French ultramarine blue. So this is really, this even can just go over these oranges because this was actually really highlighted there. I'll just lift that up. Should try to get oh yeah, there we go. And then this. Now I'm gonna just add, I'm gonna use a lot of paint. So if I had squished some new paint out, I wouldn't need to dig like this. I could just touch that and have paint. Over here I'm adding burnt sienna. If I get to about a 50-50 mixture, I have almost pure black. Okay, so again, I'm painting with the side of my brush, and when I brush down like this, the paper has tooth and it skips in those little spots and makes those little highlights, which I like. this. Paint here. I think it looks like a watercolor when that happens. Another way to make a dark brown is to use either sepia, which I have in my brush right now. It's almost that same color. There we go, so you can get a nice dark, kind of fast using that. And the other way to get a really dark brown is to use neutral tint, which is it's kind of a gray. So if you want to have some little areas that are dark right next to it, and that shadow going down, you can add those. And then we need to put some shadow at the bottom of this pumpkin where it hits the fence post. Where it touches is called the occlusion shadow, and then there's and it's sort of rough there, so I'm gonna see how I'm just tapping that on with the side of my brush, and then I'm gonna put a few here and a few this way, and and it's kind of scars too, shadow and scar. If I want to, I can put a few up here, not too many though. Following the shape of those, I don't know, what are they called? Sections? Now I just sort of put those in not that well, so now I have a problem because now I went into my painting with more water on my brush than was on the paper, and that's when I get blooms. So I have to be careful with that. Okay, so I'm gonna call that good. I can even put a little bit more dark, like right at the bottom where it touches. Yeah, the occlusion shadow. Okay. Gonna leave that. I'm gonna work on the stem. So the stem is this really one of the few places there's a little green. So I'm gonna start with the orange. I see a little orange at the tip, and I also see a little orange right here. Whoops, that was sloppy there. Pretend I didn't do that. And now I'm going to go into these browns that I have. Just using my pencil brush, just the top couple bristles of this. Really want to make this. I want to really show that the stem is coming out of that rounded section. So this is burnt sienna and French ultramarine blue that I'm using right now. If I leave little highlights in the darks, it really makes it look darker because the highlights come out very the highlights make the dark look darker. All right, so there's that. And then I just dipped my brush in the water, and I'm gonna try to make this look lighter, although I think I had more. I think what happened was everything but the dark gray. Oh, okay, well, I'm just gonna go with this. Okay, so there's that pumpkin, there's this. This needs just a very light orangish brown right here to say that it's the light. I've got the line showing, I'm gonna ignore that. Okay, now I'm going to do the raven. So, the raven's a very black bird, but the highlights on the feathers are very light. And there's a highlight in the eye, it has a tongue that's highlighted. They have a lot of fluff underneath their chins, which doesn't really show up here other than this kind of fluffiness. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use, I think if I use neutral tint, that is a really good Raven color, I can add some burnt sienna into that and get sort of the brown tint to it. And I have French ultramarine blue in this part of the painting, so I can add some French ultramarine blue to the neutral tint. And I never put any green in this, so I don't really, I'm just trying to decide if I want to put a little bit of Antwerp blue into that stem. I kind of do. It's got a little bit. Okay, so there's the tiniest bit of Antwerp blue I just put in. So now I can add Antwerp blue into the neutral tint also. All right, so I'm going to use those colors for my Raven. I'm just going to start with the lightest one, which is neutral tint with tons of water. Tons of water. So this is almost white paint. I'm putting this where all those lights are. On the wing here, on the beak up here, the tongue is that color. It's showing here, there's a little highlight here. Actually the feet, we're gonna have problems because we went over the pumpkin. I'm scared now that our feet aren't gonna show on the pumpkin because they're light. So I should have gone around them or PBO'd those feet. We'll make it work though. I'm just gonna lift it up a little bit and make it work. And just make the feet darker than they are instead of having those highlights. Okay, now I'm gonna go in and get another layer of dark going in. So this is neutral tint. I'm gonna add French ultramarine blue to it. So it's this really dark blue tint. It's nice and dark in here. Going around the foot is nice and dark. There's these little feathers on the belly. It's around the foot. Here's the wing, or the tail. This, I like working from photos better than paintings, because with every painting, when you try to paint from a painting, people are making omissions and additions that aren't really there, and they get confusing. They're good to look at, but they're hard to paint from. Now, the thing about ravens is that their tail feathers are shaped like V's. So see how I made that one longer? So it makes a V down here. Crows are round. They make like a C. Crows like C and ravens like V. So still, I'm just using this pencil brush. Now, these here, I think this is, and I'm not quite sure what feathers these are, but they're sticking out from the other side. I'll keep them a little lighter so that we know it's coming from the other side. And then this wing here. And I'm gonna paint with water now for a little bit, where these darks meet those highlights. Do you see what I mean when I paint with water? What I did was I put my brush in the water, and so now I just have water on my brush, and I'm gonna just soften up these edges. Okay, I want some darks in there, right here underneath the chin, right here. this side of okay, now I'm going to paint with some water. I'm going to get this to soften up into here. I want it to look like little feathers, so I want little soft marks. Paint with some water to soften it up, make it blur. Around the eye is so, you know, you can get your little brush out for your eye. Although this brush can do it because it has a beautiful little point. So the eye, although this one's looks like okay. Even one hair out of order will mess up a brush when you're trying to paint this fine. Make sure my head's not in the way. Okay, so the eye is round. Actually has like a little thing around it. And then the eye has the tiniest bit of brown in that. And it has a glint. So this brush is not really holding a nice tip. All right, there's a good tip. To leave a glint. All right, I did it. And then underneath here, looking in the mouth, the open mouth is dark right here and goes out kind of to the tip. I think they have a nostril, but I don't see it on this. And up here, there's a very light, like the beak, at the top of the beak is light. There is dark around the eye. And now I'm gonna just paint with water to kind of soften those edges and make it look more like feathers. I think I'm just gonna leave that raven the way it is because the next step is to go in and put in the background color. So, oh, the feet, we gotta do the feet. Okay, the feet are kind of brownish black. So brownish black is gonna be neutral tint and burnt sienna. Okay, and I'm gonna touch my brush. And now I'm going to paint little toenails, claws, I guess, and then it looks like there's like little bands of color on these claws. So much fun when I do stuff like this. I just love it. It's so funny, these like I never noticed little bands of a raven's claws before. They have these little bands of on their feet. But now I know that a raven has little bands on their feet. Okay, so yeah, and I can kind of see the pumpkin through it, but I also know those are feet and they look kind of convincing to me. So that's good enough. And now I need to put in a background. So the trick to the background is going to be to just put in colors that are very soft and blurry, wet into wet. I'm going to go with clean water here. And I'm going to just wet the whole thing, and I'm going to be very careful around the things I have so far. I'm just gonna I'm wetting the whole thing, but I'm leaving a nice like 1/4 inch or more around all of these things. I'm wondering if it wouldn't be easier to put this in before. In class, I might put it in before. Oh, I'm liking how this looks. Okay. The pumpkin's pretty dry, so I can go right up next to it now. If I get a little blurring, I don't care, it's a watercolor. Okay, so there's a little bit in there, and here, but this is the raven, and then here, and then I want to make sure that right around the beak, I am careful, because I want to make sure that that's really the highlight of the whole painting, is the beak and the eye, the focal point. All right, so now I have to pick a color, and I use the tiniest bit of Antwerp in here. I do see cerulean in the background here with burnt sienna. Like there's branches that are blurry back there. So I'm almost tempted just to use this puddle and throw a little cerulean in it and see what I get. Or, yeah, it's kind of semi-opaque. Okay, so that's all wet, so let's see what happens. Okay, I'll be careful in here. If I have blue on this side of the neck and the beak, I need to have blue on this side of the neck and beak. If I have a streak that goes here, I need that same color over here. On that side of the tail, it needs to be on this side of the tail. Same thing in here. It needs to be on that side of the bird. And then I do see some browns, so that's burnt sienna. Let's just try burnt sienna in the puddle and see what, so let's see what I'll see what happens. If you don't like it, you can leave it out. I'm just putting it, so if I have a little bit of brown there, I need it here. Sort of dotting it, it's like it's a tree branch coming through. Dead leaves almost. Oh, kind of darken these corners. I don't know. There. I think I'm just going to stop. I wish I'd signed my name, but you know what? I still can. I'll sign it right here. Mary K. Jolly. With a C, with a circle. There we go. Thanks for watching.